Friend Shabbat Shalom to everyone again. It's always good to see everyone here. I have to explain one thing before I offer this message, or it doesn't make any sense. Just a little bit of Judaism 101. We Jews live within a lunar calendar, okay? And our Jewish holidays are in a lunar calendar, and what gets mixed up is you and I live in the Gregorian calendar, so it gets confusing. But everything in the Bible is a lunar calendar, and then you have computer programs that allow us to coincide, okay? So upon hearing what I'm about to tell you, you might be led to believe I don't know anything about Judaism, okay? Especially about the Jewish calendar. So be patient, be open-minded, don't jump to any conclusions that I'm really incredibly ignorant of Judaism. Now, with sunset this evening, an important Jewish holiday has ended. It's called Passover. Now, you're thinking that is impossible. We celebrated Passover a month ago. And this Shabbat, the Torah seems to prove me wrong based on what I just said. Now, this is what the Torah says in our Torah portion for this week. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at twilight, there shall be a Passover offering to the Lord. And on the 15th day of that month, the Lord's feast of unleavened bread. You shall eat unleavened bread for 7 days. So it doesn't appear to be ambiguous. It's the 14th day of Nisan, the Torah tells us. And in Gregorian calendar this year, it was April 5th. So I must be wrong. How can today be Passover? However, of course, I'm right. And it's technically, does that surprise you? No, okay. I would never get up and say I'm wrong. That is against everything I believe in. So technically, it's called the second Passover. Passover is extraordinarily important in Jewish calendar. It's the festival of freedom. It's a story of the Jewish people being born. It's a time when everyone affirms that our lives are rooted in our ancient past. But the question arises, what if we miss Passover? And I'm not speaking about our Google Calendar failing. In the book of Numbers, we read much later in the year the following statement. It says, "The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the Israelites, saying, When any of you or of your posterity who are defiled by a corpse or are on a long journey would offer the Passover sacrifice to the Lord, they shall offer it in a second month on the 14th day of the month at twilight." In other words, if somehow you became ritually impure and you couldn't literally offer a sacrifice, we don't offer a sacrifice, but 2,000 years ago we did. Or if you were on a journey away from your family and you couldn't have Passover, what do? You shall eat bitter herbs, you shall eat unleavened bread and bitter herbs, and they shall not leave any of it over until morning, the laws of Passover. But you do it not in the first month of the year, you do it on the second month of the year, and therefore I am absolutely correct, because the second month, this is the 14th of ER, the second month. So this is Passover Sheni. That's what it is in the Jewish calendar. So if anyone doubted my knowledge of the Jewish calendar, you were wrong. Now, this is not a tradition that we observe, at least most Jews don't. Since the destruction of the temple, Pesach Sheni is only celebrated symbolically. There are people who eat a piece of matzah last night. However, and this is where it started getting very interesting to me as I started contemplating this. The Lubavitch Hasidim build on this idea in the most beautiful way. In a diary of the sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzhak Schneerson, and he wrote on the 14th of Iyar, Pesach Sheni, in May 16th, 1943. This is what he said. He said, the theme of Pesach Sheni is that it is never too late. It's always possible to put things right. Even if one was ritually impure or one was far away, or even in the case of lachem, which means when one intentionally becomes impure so they don't have to observe Passover, nonetheless, a person can correct that. And then in 1978, the Rebbe Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, expanded on this teaching. And let me share what he said. He said, Pesach Sheni gives those who did not offer the Passover sacrifice the first time the opportunity to do so a month later. And its message is that nothing is irretrievable. We can always rehabilitate ourselves. Isn't that? One clear lesson from Pesach Sheni is, and he's talking about the Jews need never to give up hope. And in the words of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, he quotes the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Then he goes on to say that we are all intrinsically good, and sin is completely antithetical to our nature. And if we transgress, it's an aberration. It can't destroy our essence, so that we always have this ability to return to our ideal self. There's always a second chance. Now, I want to expand this idea a little bit. And I want to talk about the possibility of second chances. Now, when you look into Jewish tradition, second chances are everywhere. Adam and Eve, after being expelled from the Garden of Eden, they go on. Noah rebuilds humanity in the aftermath of the flood. Joseph kills his brother. Joseph is given by his brothers into slavery, believing that he really was going to be killed. And then later on, Joseph forgives his brothers. The Israelites make it to the promised land after 40 years of ungrateful whining in the wilderness. Moses receives 2 tablets of the covenant. When one is broken out of anger, God makes him another one. Rabbi Akiva, who didn't study until the age of 40, becomes one of the great sages in Jewish history. Now, what's the impact of this? It seems second chances go in 2 directions in our lives. It seems people will make mistakes. Has anyone known anyone who's made a mistake? They will disappoint us. They will neglect us. They will say the wrong thing to us. They will fail to understand what we really need from them. They will make moral decisions that disappoint us. They will hurt us. Family life is filled with these disappointments. Children who disappoint their parents, parents that disappoint their children, couples that hurt each other. And our tradition is telling us, let's stretch ourselves. Let's restrain our natural instinct to keep score, except in the most extreme cases. And let's find a way to give each other a second chance. Don't we all deserve a break? And then the second lesson is, shouldn't we point this insight at ourselves? We can often kick ourselves about the stupid things that we've done, the unfortunate directions that we've taken and regret, the foolish paths that we followed, the ruts that we have found ourselves in of our own making, jobs we've lost, relationships we squandered. Don't we deserve to give ourselves a second chance? So this concept of Pesach Sheni, that really of a second Passover, it's interesting. I know, in fact, some Hasidim have a little Seder the night of Passover, of Pesach Sheni, the second Passover. I'm not suggesting that. But I think the insight that is being offered, especially the interpretation of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's, are something we really should think about. And let me close with a beautiful statement of a rabbinic colleague, Rabbi Annie Tucker, kind of brought this whole thing together in, I think, such an eloquent way. She says, as we acknowledge Pesach Sheni this evening, may we feel newly committed to grasp for the second chances that it offers. Second chances allow us to right wrongs, to repair hurts, to realize new goals, to forge new relationships. They allow us to grow from the past rather than being burdened by it, to imagine a different future rather than being stuck in our old disappointments. In this day and age, as people are living longer and feeling less boxed in by convention, as the world is changing ever more rapidly and requiring us to be ever more nimble, there are second careers, second acts, second marriages, second tries, and it's up to us to be wise enough to grab these opportunities whenever they present themselves. Nice thought on Shabbat.